Welcome to Zeph's house. Come in out of the dark and pull the door shut behind you. Tonight's tale is called The Dead. There's a cave on the Red River up in Adams that people pay money to walk through now. They string colored lights along the wet rock, and a man tells you the story of the Bell Witch in a voice meant to raise the hair on your arms, and at the end everybody laughs. That's what you do at the end of a ghost story. You laugh and you walk back out to your car, and you've had your money's worth of being scared. My people have farmed the next bottom over from the old Bell place for 190 years. We don't go to the cave. And we don't laugh, because we know what the thing in that story actually was. And it wasn't a witch. Everybody knows the bones of it. Back around 1817, John Bell, a prosperous man, good land along the river, plenty of folks working it for him, started being troubled. First it was a strange animal in the field, a thing with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit that he shot at and missed. Then it was a knocking on the walls of the house at night, a scratching like a big dog at the door, only inside the walls. Then it got worse. Bedclothes dragged off in the dark, the Bell children, especially the young girl Betsy, slapped and stuck with pins and pulled by the hair by something that wasn't there to grab. And then the thing started to talk. That's the part the caveman tells best, because it's the part that sounds like a show. The voice came up out of nothing, a woman's voice. And it would sing hymns in the dark, and it would quote the preacher's sermon back word for word from a church 2 counties off that nobody in the house had been to. He would carry on a conversation with anybody bold enough to talk to it. People came from all over the state to sit in that front room and ask it questions. Andrew Jackson himself was said to have come and left in the night and never spoke of it after. They asked it what it was. It gave a different answer to every man who asked. A witch, a spirit, the ghost of an Indian, the voice of a child died unbaptized. It handed out answers the way you'd put off a child asking a question you have no intention of really answering. But to the family, when the door was shut and the strangers were gone and it was only the Bells, it was plainer. It told them why it was there. That's the part that doesn't make the tour. My great-great-granddaddy was a young man in those years, and he was one of the few people from outside the family that the thing ever spoke to straight. He'd gone to sit up with John Bell one bad night, the way neighbors did, and in the small hours the voice spoke to him out of the cold corner of the room, calm as you please, and told him a thing it plainly wanted carried out of that house. He carried it. He told his son, and his son told his, and it came down to me, and I'll give it to you the way it came to me. John Bell had taken a piece of ground that was never his to take. There was a stretch of the river bottom, good black land, the best on the place, that the old people, the people who were here long before any Bell, had always left alone. Not because it farmed poorly, because it was owed. There was a marker on it, the kind of marker you'd walk right past unless somebody had taught you to read it, and the arrangement on that ground was old, and it was simple. You could live alongside it, but you could not take from it. John Bell took from it. He ran his fence out across it and put it to corn, and when a neighbor woman warned him off it, a woman the county afterward decided to call a witch, which is a thing men call a woman when they don't want to think too hard about what she said, he saw to it she was cheated out of her own place and left with nothing, and the ground called in what it was owed. The thing in that house was not a ghost, and it was not a curse some old woman laid. It was collection. It came for John Bell, and it came for Betsy, because Betsy was promised, the way the firstborn against a debt sometimes is, and it left the rest of the household mostly be. 4 years the county stood around it calling it a haunting, because a haunting is a thing that happens to you, and a debt is a thing you owe, and Lord, it is so much easier to be the victim of a thing than to be the one in the wrong. It told them how it would end, said it out loud, in front of witnesses, more than once. It said it would have John Bell, and it said it would not be hurried. In December of 1820, John Bell was found senseless in his bed. There was a little vial of dark liquid in the cupboard that nobody in the house could account for, and the voice laughed and said it had given him a dose from that vial that would do the work, and it sang while he died. Sang drinking songs, loud and ugly, through the whole of his dying and clear through the burying, sang over the men carrying the coffin. And when John Bell was in the ground, the torment stopped, all at once, like a debt marked paid. It told Betsy goodbye, kindly enough. It had never really had a quarrel with the girl once the account was settled, and it told the family it would come back in 7 years. And it did. 1828, the knocking came again in the walls at night, but the family that was left had learned the one thing worth learning. You don't answer it. They lay still. They didn't speak to it, didn't ask it anything, gave it nothing to settle against, and after a couple of weeks it gave up and went quiet. But before it went, it made one more promise. Not 7 years this time, a longer time. The old telling says 107 years, though my granddaddy always allowed the number went a little soft each time it got passed down, and the plain truth is nobody ever wrote it somewhere it couldn't be smudged. 107 years on from 1828 is 1935. My granddaddy was a boy that year, and he said his daddy kept the whole household to the old rules straight through it. You don't walk the bell bottom after dark. You don't answer a knock you can't account for. And if the river smells like turned earth in a dry spell, you stay in and you stay quiet. And 1935 came and it went, and nothing happened that anybody could lay a finger on, and the family let out its breath and decided the thing was finally done. Started, a little at a time, to laugh at the cave like everybody else. I never could. Because here's the thing I know that the tour doesn't. That last promise, the 107 years, that was never the thing saying when it would come back to the Bells. The Bells had paid. Their account was square the day they buried John. The thing said it would come back to the ground to collect from whoever was standing on it. And the ground is still there. The marker is still there, out in that good black bottom, for anybody who knows how to read it. And the family that owns the old Bell place now isn't Bell, and isn't any kin to me, and doesn't know the first true thing about what they're standing on. They run cattle on the river bottom, all of it, right across the part you are meant to leave be. I have watched them do it for years, and told myself it was none of my business, and the ground stayed quiet, and I let it lie. It is not quiet now. 3 weeks back, the man who owns it came to my door, first time in his life, looking a little sheepish, and asked me, did I ever hear any knocking out our way at night? Said his wife keeps waking to it, on the walls. Said his little girl's taken to talking to somebody in her room he can't see and won't say who, except that she calls her by a name. A woman's name, old-fashioned, nobody in their family. I didn't tell him anything. God forgive me, I just said it was likely the old house settling, and I shut my door on him. What was I going to say? That the clock his great-grandfather never even knew was wound, just finished running out. That the thing always tells you exactly what it is and exactly what it has come for, plain as morning, and the only mistake anybody has ever made with it is deciding to call it a witch. His last name is the one on the deed now, not mine. The debt followed the ground, not the blood. It always did. But I have farmed alongside that bottom my whole life. I have smelled that turned earth smell coming off the river this past dry week, the same as my granddaddy warned me. And I keep thinking on how the thing went after John Bell, sure, but how it slapped and stuck and pulled the hair of his daughter too, the young one, the promised one. And that man down the road has a little girl who's started calling a dead woman by name. That's all for tonight. If this one stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe. There is a new strange tale every week. Sleep well, if you can.